Has anyone ever said to you, your life is never going to be the same? I mean, that could be pretty incredible, right? What if you won the lottery? Well, when someone said that to me, it sounded a little more something like this. Your life will never be the same. So what led me to the place where a neurosurgeon needed to tell me this? Well, one October afternoon, I woke up in the intensive care unit. My head was killing me, and I had no idea why, let alone what the heck was I even doing in there? I mean, now, my father was sitting on the bed next to me, and my mother was in a chair next to the bed, and she leaned in and tapped on the bed and said, "Well, hey there." I was like, that is really strange because I just saw her the other day, and as a matter of fact, I was just competing in a triathlon just right down at Eagle Creek Park in Indianapolis. And my relay teammate, she put us in the lead. She was the first woman out of the lake. And so now it was my turn. And so off I went on that 40K bike portion of the race. Now, I'd done triathlons before, so I knew what needed to be done. Build the lead on the bike, hold my own on the run. So I headed into that last turn on the bike portion of the race, and no other woman had passed me. So I knew exactly how this race was going to end. All that was left, I just needed to power up that last hill, build my momentum going down the hill, and then run my regular 10K. I mean, you should have seen me. I was in the zone. I was pushing and pulling on my bike pedals as hard and as fast as I could. I was crouched down in my aero bars, positive we were going to win our division. I mean, now, have you ever had that kind of confidence, knowing exactly what was going to happen next? I mean, you were in the right place, and you were on the right path. I mean, that too can be pretty darn exciting, right? But what happens if that thing that you were so positive was going to happen, what if it doesn't? What if instead life takes you down an unexpected turn that completely derails you? Well, that's what ended up happening. We didn't win our division. What I was told is that I had been in a terrible accident, and that when I was going down that hill, another competitor cut me off when we were going 35 miles per hour, and that my head hit the ground first, and that it hit with such impact that it caused my brain to slam into the inner right portion of my skull. Now, I was wearing a helmet, but I was told that I had suffered 2 traumatic brain injuries and that I had been in a coma for the last 6 weeks. And so my unexpected turn took place when I was going down that hill. And the neurosurgeon, he also told my family that he had never seen someone live who had suffered injuries like mine, let alone walk out of the hospital. Well, thank God, I had made fitness and health a priority my entire life. I'm a former Division I college athlete. I was a personal trainer, a tennis club professional. I mean, I identified as an athlete, and I wore that with pride. And so that accident and those injuries, they completely derailed my life. But you know what else? It also put me in a place where I am able to share what it taught me. Have faith in your life's path, because you never know where that unexpected turn in your life will lead. Well, as my journey continued, what I realized is that there are 3 cornerstones to this life lesson: acceptance, alignment, and action. So let's talk about that first cornerstone of acceptance. Now, that neurosurgeon, when he told me, your life will never be the same, I thought, what was he talking about? And oh my gosh, he was being so dramatic. I mean, I knew exactly where my life was headed. I had it all planned out. You know, my immediate plan was I was going to get the heck out of the hospital and right back into my workouts. But sadly, he was right. My plan had a major flaw, and apparently, as it would turn out, a neurosurgeon knew more than I did about the impact of major brain trauma. You see, I just wasn't able to understand the consequences of what it meant to suffer such trauma. And then coupled with that, I wasn't accepting it. And so that was holding me back. I know, I'm sounding a little too dramatic here myself, but look, if you too went through a life-changing event, then, I mean, it could have been an accident, it could have been an injury, it could have, whatever trauma it might have been, you know what? You might have acted like I did. For the longest time, I had to keep telling people who I used to be. So what I would do is I would work into any and every conversation I could my accident story. And I'd rationalize to them that, you know what, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be like this. I just wasn't accepting where that unexpected turn, where it was taking me. I mean, because remember, I went from a place where I was this healthy, competitive athlete to this place where I didn't even recognize myself anymore. My blood work levels, they were no longer in a healthy range, and I ended up weighing over 200 pounds. Now, that was a 100-pound weight gain for me at the time. I mean, that was a lot of weight for me to be carrying around. I'm not even 5'4". And so as time continued to pass, I mean, my identity, it just completely slipped away. But it was I finally learned that by not leaving the past in the past, then this put me on a path that it just wouldn't allow me to move forward anymore. And so once I was able to accept this, I was able to get aligned with it. And so this is our second cornerstone. And what comes to mind is a Don McLean song by the name of Crossroads. Here's a passage from it. And I know that what I used to be on the outside, I'm not anymore. Well, I understood that I had physical injuries that you could, say were on the outside, and I needed to deal with those. I understood that. And I'm sure from your unexpected turn that you might have be able to identify things that are on the outside. But what was so difficult was dealing with what used to be that was not anymore. I mean, how does one get aligned with the unknown? Well, for me, what I needed to do is I needed to start completely with a clean slate. And so as I like to say is I would Etch-a-Sketch. Do you remember that toy? Yeah. So you would draw something and then you would shake it and you'd get rid of that initial drawing so that you could start with a new one. Well, that is exactly what you do here, is you Etch-a-Sketch your life so that you can start with a clean slate. And I recommend that you start with things that really haven't changed. Now, these are going to be things that you can easily realign with, and then you build up to the things that need minor adjustments. Like, for example, you know how they tell people that fall off a horse to get right back in the saddle again? Well, now I have not been able to get right back onto a road bike, but my minor adjustment is that I now ride a mountain bike. I don't ride it up in the mountains. No. I stay on nice flat roads and, of course, always wearing my helmet. And then, when you build your confidence up, then you move on to the more challenging changes that you need to make. But there's something that I need to warn you about here. What are you going to do if there's something from your past that you're just not able to get realigned with? Now, what if that's something, what if it was a passion of yours and a source of income? Well, that's what ended up happening to me. You see, from the injuries that I sustained, I now suffer from vertigo. And so this kicks in when my head tilts a certain way or when I make sudden movements. And so you tennis players out there, you can imagine, I could no longer serve, hit it overhead. Maneuvering around the court was very difficult. And I was finally realizing, hey, I might not be able to play the sport anymore. I mean, sure, I could stand in the background with people and I could hit ground strokes all day long. I could be at the net and hit my volleys. Yeah, that wasn't a problem. But what was that it just constantly reminded me of my accident and my new limitations. I mean, this left me in a very bitter place. And so once I was able to accept these new limitations, what I found is that I was not going to be able to get aligned with how tennis would need to look for me. Well, this brings us to our third cornerstone, which is action. Now, and the key thing here is that you don't want to just take action, you want to take the right action. And you do that by finding that sweet spot of acceptance and alignment. And when you do that, then you will be able to take the right action. I have to warn you about this also, though, is that you might find out that you're going to have to make a really difficult choice. And so, for example, I came to the conclusion that tennis had served, no pun intended, had served its purpose. And so I needed to let that part of my life go. And so the right action for me was to walk away from a sport that had provided me so much. I mean, this was not easy. But you know what? Isn't it a great example of having faith in your life's path? Yeah. Now, I have another example for you, but I have to warn you, this one took me way too long to learn. It's how I handled the weight gain. Now, I had to ask myself again and again, how did you let this happen? You're a personal trainer. You know what needs to be done, but I got to tell you, I was not able to do it. And my mother, she would try to be so encouraging, and she would say to me, like only a mother can say to her child, she would say, "You're the expert, you just get right out there and lose that weight." Yeah, right. If it were only that easy. What I was doing was that I was blaming the weight gain on everything except for the actual cause. I just was not accepting the fact that what derailed me, it changed me. And I'm going to say this again for you because this is so important. What derails you changes you. I needed to let my fitness and health, it needed to look differently for me. And so once I was able to accept this, I was able to get aligned with it, which enabled me to take the right action. And because of it, I am now back in a place where I am realizing the benefits of living a healthy lifestyle. Yeah? So, pat on my back, yeah? Took 25 years. But you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the ending of Don McLean's song, Crossroads. So there's no need for turning back, because all roads lead to where we stand. And I believe we'll walk them all, no matter what we may have planned. Well, that's my story. That is what led me from a place where a neurosurgeon told me, your life will never be the same, to now here in this place where I can share with others like me who got derailed from their healthy lifestyle. And I have to say is that the next time that life takes you down an unexpected turn, remember the 3 cornerstones of acceptance, alignment, and action, because they will enable you to have faith in your life's path, because you never know where that unexpected turn in your life will lead. Thank you.